50 years ago, David Carter buried his mother. This afternoon, the phone rang, and a stranger said she was still alive. The house was quiet, except for the low hum of his refrigerator and the distant ticking of the wall clock in his small kitchen. David, 58, had been sorting through old utility bills when the shrill ring of the landline cut through the silence. He froze for a second, an old instinct flaring. Bad news always arrived on the phone in his family. He picked it up slowly, pressing it to his ear. "Mr. Carter?" The voice was gentle, feminine, with a trace of professional caution. "This is Green Willow Nursing Home. We believe your mother is here with us." David's knees went weak. He gripped the counter edge hard enough for his knuckles to whiten. "My mother died 50 years ago," he said automatically, the words raw and flat as if speaking them for the first time again. His tongue felt heavy. The kitchen seemed to tilt slightly. From the phone came a pause, then the voice again, careful and steady. "Sir, we understand this must be confusing, but the woman we have here, Eleanor Carter, she gave us your name and address. She said you're her son." The smell of old paper and coffee filled his nose as he leaned against the counter, his free hand trembling. He stared at the little kitchen window. Outside, late autumn sunlight fell across the dry backyard, picking out the rust-colored leaves that had gathered in the corner of the fence. The world had not changed, but everything inside him had. And then came the sound that ripped open a part of him he thought had turned to stone decades ago. On the other end of the line, very faint, a voice wavered, old, quivering, but carrying a melody he had not heard since he was 8 years old. A lullaby. "Hush now, little one, the night is kind." David's throat closed. The phone nearly slid from his hand. He was 8 again, lying in a small bedroom with faded wallpaper, the smell of starch from the sheets in his nose, and that same lullaby floating through the doorway. He saw his mother's silhouette in the hall, humming, her shadow long against the floorboards. In a heartbeat, the decades folded in on themselves, and the dusty room he was standing in blurred. His mind hurled him back to the day that had cut his life in half. It had been a warm July morning in 1975. He had woken to the sound of hurried footsteps and muffled voices. His grandmother had stood in the doorway, face tight, hands wringing the hem of her apron. "Your mama's gone to heaven," she said, voice trembling but firm. He remembered the smell of her perfume, lavender and something bitter, overpowering the smell of toast that burned on the counter. There had been a funeral. He had worn an uncomfortable black suit and clutched a handkerchief that was too big for his pocket. The casket had been closed. He had never been allowed to see her face, to say goodbye. Adults whispered, lawyers visited, and then life hardened around that absence like cement. He grew up carrying the weight of that emptiness, the echo of a lullaby no one else seemed to remember. And now, after half a century, that voice was flowing through the line into his ear, fragile but unmistakable. He could almost see her lips shaping the words. His chest felt like it had collapsed in on itself. I don't understand. Are you sure?" "Yes, sir," the nurse said softly. "She asked for you by name. She's been waiting for you." David slid down into the nearest chair. He pressed his free hand over his face, feeling the heat of tears breaking loose from decades of drought. His body shook once, twice. Then he lowered his hand and stared at the little picture frame on the table, the only photo he had left of his mother, taken the year before she supposedly died. Her smile was warm, proud, The corners of her eyes crinkled. The lullaby had stopped on the line. There was a faint shuffling sound, then the nurse again. "She's very weak, but she wanted to sing for you. Should we expect you today?" David didn't answer right away. His mind was a whirl of fear, anger, disbelief, and a fragile, aching hope. 50 years of living without her. 50 years of thinking she was buried in the cold ground. Every memory of birthdays without her, Christmases with an empty chair, the long nights of his teenage years when he wondered if she'd left him by choice. He swallowed hard and finally whispered, "Yes, I'm coming." He didn't even remember putting on his jacket or locking the door. The next thing he knew, he was in his old pickup truck, the engine coughing to life. The road stretched ahead under a gray sky, lined with naked trees shaking in the November wind. He gripped the wheel so tightly his hands hurt. The drive to Green Willow Nursing Home was 40 miles of memory and heartbeat. Every mile felt like it was peeling back another layer of his life. He saw flashes of the boy that he had been, running in the yard looking for a face that would never appear at the window, pretending he didn't care when other kids talked about their mothers at school. He had taught himself to be hard, to bury softness, to never need. But now, as the first green sign for the nursing home appeared on the roadside, all that armor felt like paper. He pulled into the parking lot, heart hammering. The building was low and beige, surrounded by thin pines that whispered in the cold breeze. He killed the engine and sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel, breathing fast. The phone call was real. The voice was real. The past, the impossible, was waiting for him just a few steps away. David opened the door and stepped out into the wind, the smell of damp earth and pine needles sharp in the air. He felt unsteady, like the world might tilt under his feet. 50 years of believing a lie were about to unravel inside a quiet nursing home on the edge of town. And somewhere inside, his mother, alive, impossibly alive, was waiting. He started walking toward the glass doors, his reflection shivering in the panes. His hand hovered on the handle. He closed his eyes and heard that lullaby again, like a thread stretched across time, pulling him home.
David sat in the front lobby of Green Willow Nursing Home, his hands clasped so tightly in his lap that the knuckles blanched white. A soft scent of antiseptic and old wood filled the air, mixed with the faint perfume of lilies from a vase on the receptionist's desk. His chest felt hollow, as if his rib cage had been replaced by a cavern echoing with that lullaby he'd heard over the phone. The receptionist, a kind-faced woman in her 40s with a name tag that read Nancy, leaned forward slightly, sensing the storm of doubt and disbelief radiating off him. "Mr. Carter?" she said carefully. "We understand this is difficult. We can answer any questions you need before you see her." David's voice came out rough, almost hoarse. "What's her name? Her full name?" "Eleanor May Carter, born May 17th, 1939. David felt his stomach turn over. He swallowed hard. "Her maiden name?" "Eleanor May Whitfield, married your father, Charles Carter, in 1960. His head dropped slightly. His breathing quickened. Each answer was a punch to the gut, knocking away the fragile walls of denial he was trying to rebuild. He had grown up whispering that name to himself on lonely nights, clinging to it like a talisman. And now, a stranger across the desk said it like a line from a ledger, cool and matter-of-fact. This can't be real," he whispered, running a shaking hand through his thinning gray hair. His reflection in the polished floor wavered like water. Nancy hesitated, then leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Sir, I've read her intake file. 10 years ago, she was brought in under a confidential arrangement. She refused to list her true identity until a few weeks ago, when her health began to decline. She said it was time for you to know." David's heart pounded in his chest, an uneven, panicked rhythm. 10 years? She's been here 10 years? 10 years and no one told me? "I'm so sorry, Mr. Carter. It wasn't our choice. According to the file, she requested anonymity. A private sponsor arranged her care. She hesitated, choosing her words delicately. She was under some kind of protective agreement." The word protective hit David like a slap. His mind flashed to his grandmother, to the whispers, to the lawyer who came once with a briefcase and never returned. He remembered being shooed from the kitchen when the adults' voices grew sharp. He gripped the edge of the chair. Protective? From what? Nancy glanced at the closed office door behind her, then back at him. From what she said, it was to protect you. There was some legal issue, a dispute over property, maybe. She wouldn't explain fully, but she said if she stayed gone, you'd be safe. David laughed once, bitter and sharp. It echoed too loud in the quiet lobby. Safe. I spent my whole life thinking I was an orphan, thinking she left me, thinking I wasn't worth staying alive for. Nancy's expression softened into something almost maternal. She never stopped loving you. She said that every night to anyone who would listen. David dropped his head into his hands. His shoulders trembled. The disbelief and rage churned inside him, tangled with something he hated admitting. Hope. A dangerous, fragile hope that could shatter him if this was all some cruel mistake. He forced his voice steady. "Show me the file. I need to see it with my own eyes." Nancy hesitated, then disappeared into the back office. David sat in the stillness, the tick of the lobby clock suddenly loud. A frail old man shuffled by in slippers, giving him a curious glance, then continued down the hall. Somewhere far off, a TV played the weather report, the meteorologist talking about early snow. Nancy returned, holding a thin beige folder. She opened it on the counter between them. Inside were a few pages of intake forms and a faded photograph clipped to the top. A candid snapshot of a woman in a pale cardigan sitting in a sunlit courtyard. Her hair was thin, white as snow, and her face was soft with age. But David felt his breath catch in his throat. The eyes. Even under the veil of time, they were the same deep, gentle eyes that had watched over him when he scraped his knees, that had hovered over his bed at night while she sang him to sleep. They were his mother's eyes. David staggered back a step. The room seemed to sway. He grabbed the counter to keep from falling. Oh my God. Oh my God. It's her. All at once, the anger, confusion, and disbelief roared into a single thought. If she's really here, what do I say to a ghost that isn't a ghost?
That night, after leaving Green Willow with his chest heavy and his mind whirling, David drove home in a kind of trance. The sun had already fallen behind the November trees, and the roads of his Pennsylvania town were scattered with brown leaves that skittered under the tires like dry whispers. He didn't turn on the radio. He didn't need any sound competing with the storm in his head. At home, the familiar creak of the porch step greeted him like a voice from decades ago. He stepped inside and was immediately met with the soft scent of old wood and dust. This house, inherited from his grandparents, had become a quiet museum of the life he had tried to forget and the life he had been told to forget. He went straight to the attic. It was instinctive, almost like his feet knew the path on their own. The wooden ladder groaned as he climbed up, pulling the string that lit the single bulb above. Its glow caught the floating dust motes, turning the small space into a dim, silent snow globe. There, at the far corner, sat the weathered trunk he hadn't opened in decades. It was his mother's. His grandmother had locked it after the funeral and never spoke of it again. He knelt in front of it, the cold seeping through his jeans, and pressed the old brass latch. It resisted for a moment, then popped open with a dry click that echoed in his chest. Inside, layers of the past lay waiting. Yellowed photo albums, brittle greeting cards, a few folded dresses wrapped in tissue paper that smelled faintly of lavender, long faded. And there, at the very top, a small box he recognized immediately, a cedar box his mother had kept on her vanity. He opened it with trembling hands. Inside lay a handful of objects that could have been relics from another life. A tiny music box shaped like a heart, its key rusted. A photo of himself as a boy with his mother's arm around him, taken on the porch of their old house. And a single folded handkerchief, cream-colored, with the faint blue embroidery of the letter E in the corner. He froze. It wasn't just the sight of it, it was the smell. A faint trace of lavender, stubborn after half a century, reached him and pierced through his chest like a memory reborn. He closed his eyes, and he was 8 years old again, lying in bed with a fever while she dipped that handkerchief in cool water and pressed it to his forehead. The memory hit with such clarity that his breath caught. For years he had believed the funeral, the absence, the endless explanations that she was gone, and yet holding that soft square of cloth, he could feel her presence as though time had folded back on itself. He sat back on his heels, clutching the handkerchief in both hands. Images tumbled out of his mind in fragments. He was 8. The night was rainy, and he was woken by voices downstairs. His grandmother's low, sharp tone, and a man's voice he didn't recognize. He crept to the staircase, bare feet cold on the wood, and peeked through the banister. "She's gone, David," his grandmother had said the next morning, face grim. "Your mama, there was an accident. The car went off the road." He remembered the funeral as if through a fog. It was quick, almost hushed. Only his grandparents and a man in a gray suit who smelled faintly of tobacco, a lawyer, he realized now. No neighbors, no school friends, no chance for him to see her one last time. Afterward, he had asked once in a tiny, breaking voice, "Can I see her, just to say goodbye?" His grandmother had gripped his shoulder firm and cold. "It's better you remember her as she was." From that day forward, his childhood had carried the heavy weight of abandonment. Not just grief, but the deeper, sharper pain of a boy who wondered if her mother had chosen to leave him. He had lived with that hollow for 50 years. And now, this handkerchief, this scent, this sudden flood of memory, all of it cracked something open that he thought had fossilized long ago. He pressed the handkerchief to his face, and for the first time since that phone call, he let himself cry. Not the choked, angry tears of shock, but the quiet, trembling sobs of a boy who had finally found his mother in the folds of time. In that moment, he realized the cruelest part of his forgotten past. He had spent a lifetime mourning a death that never truly happened.
David had driven the entire way to Green Willow Nursing Home, with his hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles were white. The road stretched before him in the pale light of a winter morning, but he hardly noticed the bare trees or the streaks of frost along the guardrails. His chest felt tight with every mile that passed. He had slept only 2 hours, waking every 30 minutes to check the clock, pacing his bedroom as if he could burn off the anxiety that coiled inside him. He had replayed that phone call in his head 100 times. "Mr. Carter, this is Green Willow Nursing Home. We believe your mother is here with us." And his own stunned reply, "My mother? She died 50 years ago." Even now, the memory of that voice made his stomach twist. He didn't know if he wanted to believe it. Part of him wanted to turn the car around, to pretend he'd never heard it. If this was some cruel mistake, some coincidence of names or a scam, he wasn't sure he could handle the disappointment. When he finally pulled into the small parking lot of the nursing home, the sun had broken through the thin clouds. Green Willow was a modest brick building with white trim, surrounded by a few bare oaks. A simple wooden sign creaked slightly in the breeze. David sat in the car for a moment, staring at the front doors. His reflection in the windshield looked older than he expected. Deep lines around his mouth, his hair almost entirely gray now. 58 years old, and he still felt like a boy about to step into a memory that had haunted him all his life. "Just breathe," he whispered to himself. His hand lingered on the car door handle for a moment before he pushed it open. The cold air hit his face, snapping him into the present. Inside, the nursing home smelled faintly of lavender cleaner and something like oatmeal. The floor tiles were shiny, and soft music played from a speaker somewhere down the hall. A young receptionist looked up as he entered. "Mr. Carter?" she asked gently. "Yes," David said, his voice raspier than he expected. "She's waiting for you. Room 214. Down the hall, take a left." He nodded, his legs moving before he could think. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if he were walking underwater. The corridor was quiet, except for the distant hum of fluorescent lights and the occasional squeak of rubber soles from a nurse passing by. On the walls, faded paintings of countryside barns and flowers lined the hallway, but David barely noticed them. When he finally reached the door with the brass numbers 214, he froze. His heart hammered against his ribs, loud enough that he's sure anyone passing could hear it. His hand hovered over the doorknob, shaking slightly. What if this wasn't her? What if it was and she didn't know him anymore? What if all these years of wondering ended in a single blank stare? He took one deep breath and turned the knob. The door creaked open to reveal a small, bright room with sunlight spilling across a neatly made bed and a cushioned chair by the window. On the chair sat an elderly woman, her silver white hair caught in the light like a halo. She was looking out at the snow-dusted courtyard, her back to him. David's throat closed. He opened his mouth to say something, but no sound came out. Then, as if she had felt him enter, the woman turned her head slowly. Her eyes met his. Blue-gray, clear despite the years. Eyes he had seen only in old photographs and in his dreams.
They widened in recognition first, and then softened with a warmth that seemed to melt 50 years in an instant. Her mouth trembled, and a hand lifted from the armrest. "David." Her voice broke on the name, a whisper soaked in disbelief and love. "My baby boy." David felt his knees buckle. He hadn't cried like this in decades, not since he was a teenager curled in his bed the first night after the funeral. He fell to one knee, his hands gripping the edge of the bed. "Mom," his voice cracked. "Mom, it's really you." She reached for him with trembling hands, and he leaned forward, letting her frail arms wrap around his neck. He buried his face against her shoulder, inhaling the faint scent of powder and the clean cotton of her sweater. His body shook with silent sobs. All the years of anger, grief, and emptiness poured out at once. She stroked his hair with the same rhythm he dimly remembered from childhood, as if he were still the little boy who used to crawl into her lap after a nightmare. I knew you'd find me," she whispered. Her own tears wet the side of his face. "I prayed every day." For a long time, neither of them moved. The sound of their breathing filled the small room, blending with the distant hum of the hallway outside. But here, in room 214, 50 years folded in on themselves like they had never existed. He pulled the small, worn handkerchief from his coat pocket, the one embroidered with the letter E that he had taken from his keepsake box the night before. He placed it in her hands. Her breath caught. You kept this?" "I kept everything," he said. "Every memory I had of you, even when I thought I only had pieces." She pressed the cloth to her lips, eyes shining. David sat in the chair by her bed, still holding one of her hands in both of his, afraid that if he let go, she might vanish like a dream. They talked about small things first: the weather, how long the drive had been, the flowers in the courtyard. His voice trembled and hers was soft, but neither of them wanted to break the fragile miracle of the moment with too many questions yet. For now, it was enough to exist in the same room. The minutes stretched into hours. Nurses peeked in quietly and smiled before leaving them alone. At one point, our mother insisted on touching his face with both hands, tracing the lines like she was reading a story written in his skin. "You have your father's jaw," she said softly, "and my eyes. Oh, David, I would have known you anywhere." He bit his lip, feeling that boyhood ache rise again. "I never stopped hoping," he whispered. "Even when everyone told me to stop, I never stopped." The afternoon sun shifted to gold, spilling warmth across the small room. David realized he hadn't looked at a clock in hours. For the first time in decades, he felt whole. And in that moment, nothing else mattered. David sat frozen in the small room, the music box still humming faintly on the table. The soft, tinny melody clashed against the heavy words that had just left his mother's trembling lips. He could feel his own pulse in his hands, in his throat, in the sudden roar that filled his ears. "You faked your death?" His voice cracked on the last word, torn between disbelief and grief. Eleanor Carter, now a fragile woman of 80, closed her eyes for a moment, as though gathering the strength to relive a lifetime of regret. "Yes, David. I had to. It was the only way to keep you safe." The room seemed to shrink around him. He could hear the ticking of the wall clock, the faint chatter from a television down the hall, the hum of the old radiator. Every sound seemed painfully sharp, as if the world itself was holding its breath for the rest of her confession. When your father passed, his family, they wanted everything. The house, the business, the savings. They said I was young, naive, and that I had no claim without him. They told me that if I didn't sign the papers, they'd make sure you were taken away from me, that they'd raise you themselves. I couldn't let that happen. David's hands were trembling. He remembered that time like a distant nightmare, the funeral that had felt too fast, the house that had emptied in a blink, the way his grandparents had suddenly become his whole world. So you left me, alone. His voice wavered and his eyes burned. Tears welled in hers. I didn't want to. God knows I didn't want to, but the lawyer, he said there was a way. If I disappeared, if I died, then all the property would transfer to you without contest. They couldn't touch you then. They couldn't touch your future. And I thought, her lips quivered, I thought I would come back for you. I thought it would only be months, maybe a year. But then what? His voice was sharper now, ragged with the edge of anger that had been building for decades. She flinched but met his eyes. Then the lie became too big. Your grandparents told everyone we were gone. They moved you to another school. And by the time I came close, by the time I thought I could show my face again, you were grown. You were safe. And I was afraid you'd hate me. David's chest heaved. His hands were fists on his knees, knuckles white. He thought of all the birthdays staring at an empty chair, of the nightmares of car crashes and flames, of the quiet envy he had felt for friends who still had mothers to hug them after scraped knees or broken hearts. You let me think you were dead for 50 years. Her shoulders shook. She reached for his hand with a trembling grip. I let you live. I watched from far away when I could. I kept every clipping I could find about you. Your graduation, your wedding. I saw your son's birth announcement in the paper. I knew you were thriving, and I told myself that was enough. David felt something snap inside, a dam of fury and sorrow, and then the weight of love came crashing through. He was both the abandoned child and the son who had just found his mother again. His hand tightened around hers despite himself, his chest shuddering. I don't know if I can forgive you, but I can't stop loving you either. Eleanor's tears slid silently down her wrinkled cheeks. That's all I ever hoped for, my darling boy. That somewhere, under all the pain, you'd remember that I loved you more than my own life. The words hung between them like the tolling of a church bell, heavy and impossible to ignore. David leaned forward, resting his forehead on the back of her hand. The scent of lavender cream and the faint warmth of her skin pulled him back to the little boy who used to crawl into her lap after a nightmare. Outside, the wind rattled the nursing home window. Inside, a lifetime of buried secrets finally saw the light, and the room held the fragile, electric silence of two lives being stitched back together, thread by trembling thread.
The room was dim except for the soft glow of the bedside lamp, casting a pool of amber light on the quilted blanket and the deep lines of Eleanor Carter's face. David sat on the edge of the narrow bed, his shoulders trembling from the storm of emotions that had passed between them that day. His fingers were still wrapped around his mother's fragile hand, as if letting go might cause her to vanish again, like the ghost she had been in his life for 5 decades. "Mom," his voice cracked. He hadn't called anyone that in so long that the word itself felt foreign and yet painfully right. "There's one thing I need. I don't even know if you can." She turned her head, her tired eyes glowing with a soft, patient understanding. "Anything, my baby boy." David swallowed hard, tasting salt and regret. "Would you sing to me? Just once more. The lullaby you're used to. I think I remember it. I dream about it sometimes. But I need to hear it. I need to know it was real." Her lips trembled, and for a moment fear flickered across her features. "It's been so long," she whispered. "I'm not sure my voice will hold." "I don't care if it cracks," he said, his voice low, desperate. I need it." Eleanor closed her eyes, and a silence stretched across the room, broken only by the distant hum of the night shift vacuum down the hall. Then, slowly, she began to hum, and the melody wavered like an old photograph coming into focus. "Hush now, little one, the night is kind. The moon will keep you safe while you close your eyes. Dream of fields where the fireflies play, and know that Mama's love will never fade away." The words slipped out fragile and tremulous, but to David it was the sound of his entire lost childhood blooming back into the present. The notes were exactly as he remembered in his bones, tucked away behind 50 years of grief and abandonment. A single tear escaped before he could stop it, then another, and soon he was sobbing openly, his head pressed to her lap like he was 6 years old again. Her hand moved instinctively, combing through his graying hair with the same gentle rhythm she'd once used to soothe his childhood nightmares. "My sweet boy," she whispered between the lines, "I never stopped singing to you in my heart." David could barely breathe through the lump in his throat. He let the lullaby wash over him, let it stitch together the jagged edges of memory with golden thread. He remembered the smell of laundry soap and warm milk, the creak of the rocking chair in their old living room, the safe weight of her hand on his back. He remembered belonging. By the time the song ended, the room was soaked in the quiet magic of a love that outlived lies, years, and even death itself. David lifted his head, his eyes red but bright. "Thank you," he choked out. "You gave me back everything I thought I lost." Eleanor smiled through her own tears, and the lamp flickered, as if the room itself was holding its breath for them. "No, sweetheart," she said softly. "You carried it all this time. I just reminded you it was still yours." Outside, the wind whispered through the nursing home's old oaks. Inside, the lullaby lingered in the air like a fragile promise that even time couldn't break.
The first snow of December dusted the rooftops and bare tree branches of Maple Street, a neighborhood that had not changed much in half a century. The old swing set still stood in the corner lot, rusted and leaning. The maple trees that had given the street its name now gnarled with age. David stood in the middle of the street with his coat collar pulled high against the cold, his breath clouding in the winter air as he stared at the house he'd once called home. For a moment, he was a boy again, running barefoot across the porch, his mother waving from the doorway with a towel in her hands. He could almost hear her voice, soft and warm, calling him in for supper. And now, 50 years later, she was alive, sitting in the back seat of his car, staring wide-eyed at the neighborhood that time had preserved in amber. Eleanor Carter, 80 years old, wore a new navy blue coat that the nursing home staff had insisted she take for the day. A scarf David had picked out for her, a soft lavender one, the color of the little dresses she had once sewn for him when he was a toddler, was wrapped around her thin neck. She pressed her fingers to the glass as they pulled into the driveway. "It's the same," she whispered. "Even the mailbox. I remember painting it with you when you were little." Her voice trembled, a mixture of awe and the aching weight of memory. David smiled, feeling his chest tighten. "Welcome home, Mom." The plan had come together in a flurry of calls and messages over the last 2 weeks. David had reached out to every neighbor he could track down, starting with the Johnsons across the street, who were now in their late 70s themselves. He had explained the story carefully, well, the parts that could be explained, about his mother's disappearance, the deception, the years lost. Some neighbors had gasped, some had cried over the phone, and a few had initially thought he was playing some kind of cruel joke. But when he sent them the photo of him and Eleanor together, hugging in the nursing home, the disbelief turned to stunned silence. Now, the old neighborhood had come together to welcome back a ghost. Inside the house, the air was warm with the scent of vanilla frosting and coffee. Balloons in soft blues and whites bobbed near the ceiling, and on the dining table sat a large cake with "Happy 80th Birthday, Eleanor" written in looping pink script. It was the Johnsons' daughter, Patricia, now a grandmother herself, who had baked the cake, saying she remembered Eleanor teaching her to play hopscotch on the driveway. When Eleanor stepped through the doorway, the chatter gone quiet. Dozens of eyes turned toward her. She froze, her hand gripping David's arm for support. For a heartbeat, the only sound was the faint hiss of the radiator and the distant wind. Then Mrs. Johnson gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "Eleanor! Oh, dear Lord! Eleanor Carter!" Tears spilled down her wrinkled cheeks as she nodded, her lips trembling. "Yes, it's me." The room erupted in a mix of laughter and sobs as old neighbors approached her, some hugging her, some just touching her sleeve as if to confirm she was real. Mr. Peterson, who had been a teenager on the block when David was a child, shook his head in disbelief. I carried flowers to your funeral. I thought you were gone all this time." Eleanor reached for his hand, her grip surprisingly firm. "I was gone, but I never stopped thinking of this place, of all of you, of my boy." The celebration began slowly, tenderly. At first, the neighbors spoke in hushed voices, as if they were afraid to disturb the fragile miracle in their midst. But as coffee cups were poured and slices of cake were passed around, laughter began to ripple through the room. Stories spilled out about the block parties in the 60s, about the summer nights when fireflies had lit up the yards, about David learning to ride his bike and Eleanor cheering him on from the sidewalk. Someone produced an old black and white photo album. Patricia had kept it all these years, and in it were snapshots of Maple Street life, barbecues, snowmen, children with missing front teeth. And there, in the middle of a page, was a photo of Eleanor herself, young and radiant, kneeling beside a 5-year-old David holding a toy train. The sight made her press her hand to her mouth and sob quietly, while David rested a comforting hand on her back. Later in the evening, they gathered in the living room for the moment David had secretly arranged. A neighbor had set up a projector and screen, and on it a slideshow of old neighborhood photos played to the soft strains of piano music. It was like watching a homecoming in motion. Summers long gone, faces that had aged, moments that would never return. Except, somehow, they had, in this one miraculous night. When the slideshow ended, David brought out the birthday cake. The room fell silent as he lit the candles, their small flames dancing in the dim light. Eleanor stared at the cake as if in disbelief, her eyes shimmering. "Go ahead, Mom," David said softly. "Make a wish." She closed her eyes, and for a long moment, no one breathed. Then she leaned forward, blew out the candles, and the room erupted in applause and cheers. Some neighbors were wiping their eyes. Mrs. Johnson leaned over to whisper to David, "This is the happiest miracle I've ever seen." Someone snapped a picture then of mother and son hugging in front of the cake, the pink letters gleaming against the frosting. That photo would spread across the town before the week was over. People would share it online. The story would make the local paper, and for a few brief days, Maple Street became a place where time bent and love conquered decades of silence. As the evening wound down, David and Eleanor stepped outside for a moment of quiet. The snow had started again, light and feathery, landing in Eleanor's white hair like tiny stars. She looked up at the sky, then back at her son, and whispered, "I never thought I would see this day. I never thought love would bring me home again." David hugged her tightly, feeling the years, the losses, and the miracle of this reunion all pressing into his heart. And as the night closed around them, a narrator's voice could almost be heard, carried on the winter air. Sometimes the past waits quietly until love calls it home. The sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the sky in swirls of rose, tangerine, and soft lavender that mirrored the scarf around Eleanor's neck. The neighborhood had finally quieted after the long day of celebration. The balloons bobbed lazily on the porch rail, their strings tangled in the cool evening breeze. The laughter and chatter of neighbors had faded into memory, leaving behind the tranquil hum of cicadas and the faint creak of the porch swing. David sat beside his mother on the weathered wooden steps, the same steps he had bounded down countless times as a child. His hand enveloped hers, a fragile warmth that spoke of time reclaimed, of the fragile bridge that love had built across 50 years of silence. Eleanor's fingers were thin and cool, but her grip was steady, and she leaned her head against her son's shoulder with a sigh of contentment. Neither spoke for a long while. They simply watched the sun melt into the line of maples at the far end of the street, their branches now black silhouettes against the fading light. The smell of someone's chimney fire drifted through the crisp winter air, mingling with the faint sweetness of the vanilla cake that still lingered on their hands and clothes. David's mind was a kaleidoscope of moments, memories of his lonely childhood, the ache of standing at a funeral for a mother who wasn't really gone, and the impossible miracle of seeing her step back into his life as if no time had passed at all. He thought of the lullaby she had sung to him the night before, the fragile tremor in her voice that had carried him back to the safety of her arms at age 5. It was as if all those lost years had funneled into this one moment, pure and unshakable. Eleanor broke the silence with a whisper, her voice as soft as the breeze stirring the dried leaves in the yard. "I never thought I'd see this again," she said, looking at the maple trees swaying gently in the wind. "I used to sit right here and dream you'd come home from school, telling me about your day. I held on to that dream all these years." David swallowed hard, feeling his throat tighten. He turned to her, the fading light reflecting in his eyes. "And I thought I'd lost you forever. All my life I carried that hole inside me. Every birthday, every Christmas, it was like part of me was missing."
She reached up with her free hand and cupped his cheek, her Tinger's fingers trembling. But love, it always finds a way back, even if it takes a lifetime. David's voice cracked as he answered, "You're right, Mom. Love always finds a way back." The sky deepened to twilight, the first stars blinking awake above them. The streetlights flickered on one by one, bathing the empty street in a soft amber glow. Inside the house, the last of the birthday candles had burned out, leaving only the scent of wax and sugar, and a photo of mother and son locked in an embrace on the dining room table, a testament to the impossible, a story the neighborhood would tell for decades. I thought I'd lost her forever, but love, it always finds a way back. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to like this video and subscribe for more incredible true stories. And share it with someone you wish could hear a loved one's voice again. Because sometimes the past isn't gone, it's just waiting for love to call it home.